And this is the old world, right? In the old world, you had the expert, the graybeard, who said, well, this is the way we've done it, and I'm super confident. And that tyranny of confidence can destroy you, right?
The future of organizations is going to be a learning organization, and that's what experimentation gives you.
We're going to go into our internal attributes. We've got 5 internal attributes.
These 5 internal mechanisms allow you to manage the control framework and drive culture in your exponential organization. So let's cover these. Peter, why don't you start with interfaces?
So interfaces, you can think of them as APIs as well. If you're a rapidly growing organization and you're bringing on customers, you're bringing on community, there's no way that humans enable you to scale at the rate of thousands, tens of thousands, millions. You need to automate that, really, and that is your interface. Those are your APIs. These allow you to scale your organization. They also allow you to turn your organization into a platform, right? One of the platforms I love was when Chad Hurley created YouTube and enabled, it was at the intersection of all these exponentials, cheap memory, cheap smartphones, high bandwidth internet, and allowed anybody to upload and then to monetize that. Uber is the poster child once again of these interfaces. It's the interface with me as a customer when I'm calling up Uber, Uber Eats, whatever it might be, and interfaces with the drivers. It's that agility that enables that. The App Store, Steve Jobs created this App Store on top of a smartphone, making it accessible to anybody. I've spoken about in the past something called a user interface moment. A user interface moment, I look for these moments. They're really important. Please pay attention here. When you've got a very complex infrastructure like the ARPANET, right, the predecessor to the internet, which very few people could use, here comes Mark Andreessen, and he creates Mosaic. And Mosaic is a user interface moment on top of ARPANET, allowing anybody to build websites and utilize this backbone of connectivity. And then all of a sudden, boom, the World Wide Web explodes. Coinbase is a user interface moment, allowing any of us to buy and transact very easily these cryptocurrencies. And then the other best example right now, we're living through it, is ChatGPT. It is very much a user interface moment, allowing us to utilize large language models extremely easily.
2 things about this, right? Note that all platform businesses use interfaces, okay? And basically you want to automate the supply side and the demand side. So think about Google Ads. They've automated the buying of ads and the selling of ads, and therefore they can scale effortlessly. Same with Uber. The interface between Uber and its drivers is actually a form of intellectual property. Yeah. So we think this is the most under-recognized element in business today, are the interfaces between your company and the outside and how you automate those. We think there's going to be books written about the future of interfaces to manage and navigate. If you can automate the interface, which is automating one of the scale elements, right? So XPRIZE, when we run teams, etc., the more you can automate the interaction with the teams,
if I'm an entrepreneur right now, I'd be looking to build a platform.
Yeah. So super critical interfaces to deal with this. All right, next one is dashboards.
Over to you.
Okay. So dashboards are critical because if you're building an EXO and things are going wrong, or things are going right, you want to know as fast as possible. There are 2 pieces and 2 sides of dashboards. One is the external dashboards, which is the real-time engagement metrics that your organization is tracking. And on the inside, OKRs, or what stands for objectives and key results. Okay? So if I go up a level, almost every Silicon Valley company uses OKRs to manage the control framework, performance management, team and individual performance. Google has taken it to an extra step by making their OKR system completely transparent. So if I'm an employee, I can look up anybody else's past performance and what they're currently working on to see is it worth collaborating with them, etc. On the external side, companies are tracking, for example, Focus at Will, which streams music to put your brain in an alpha state, publishes to all the stakeholders the current number of free users, paid users, the churn, the average revenue rate, the monthly revenue rate, and publishes like 30 statistics that operate in real time. So these 2 components are absolutely critical. They're the headlights that keep you seeing if you're on the road or not as you head towards your MTP. Let's take a negative example of WeWork. Okay, WeWork didn't have adequate dashboards and didn't realize they were losing money every time they opened an office. And what they did was they scaled the company and lost money on every transaction. So they scaled their losses. Okay, so you really want to get your unit metrics right before you scale, which is also called product market fit, etc. And dashboards are absolutely critical for all of that. Okay. Next one is experimentation. Peter, talk us through that one.
Sure. So there are two principal elements in experimentation. And to a large degree, this is a culture that you need to build into your company from the beginning. The most successful companies are data-driven, founder-led, experimental companies that it's their second nature to run experiments constantly. Part of this is lean startup thinking. And the other is creating a culture of risk. And in a lot of nations around the world, failure is a death sentence. And that's a problem. Ultimately, one of the benefits of the Silicon Valley mentality is if I fail, that means I've learned and I'm likely not to make that mistake again. You need to be building a learning organization. A couple of fun quotes. This is yours, Salim. It says, experimentation eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, we used to say culture eats strategy for breakfast, but I rename it and I go experimentation eats culture for breakfast. And yours is?
Yeah, overcoming the tyranny of confidence. And this is the old world, right? In the old world, you had the expert, the graybeard, who said, well, this is the way we've done it, and I'm super confident. And that tyranny of confidence can destroy you, right? The day before something truly is a breakthrough, it's a crazy idea. And if you're confident in the old way of thinking, or if you're an expert who can tell you exactly how it can't be done, you're stuck. That diagram you see on the right-hand side there really is about a rapid experimentation cycle. You know, the king of experimentation has truly been Amazon. I love a quote from Jeff Bezos who goes, our success is a function of the number of experiments we run per day, per week, per year, right? And they built an entire organization around that. So data-driven, founder-led experimental organizations, so hypercritical.
Two quick things.
Yeah, sure.
One is, because the world is changing all the time, you have to be running nonstop experiments to be the sense-making of this, right? So your strategy is done. There's no way of formulating strategy in today's world because the world is changing so fast. The best strategy in the world failed when the pandemic hit. You could have the best strategy as a technology company until ChatGPT launched. So you have to be constantly running experiments of sense-making. Let's take the example of Eric Yuan, who was building WebEx for Cisco. He wanted to try a bunch of things with WebEx, and Cisco wouldn't let him. So he went outside, built Zoom, and boom, we have the world's most popular video interface. Why? Because he wanted to experiment. The big company wouldn't let him, and look at the result as a response.
An amazing individual, friend, Astro Teller. He is the captain of moonshots at Alphabet, at X. Let me share a short video here. And the important thing that's important to note is if you're going to experiment a lot, you're going to fail a lot. And if you don't have a tolerance for failure in your organization, you're going to fall apart. All right, let's listen to Astro Teller.
We need people to become lifelong learners. And the number one reason that we aren't lifelong learners is because you don't learn from confirmation bias. You learn when you're wrong. Failure is the only meaningful mechanism for improvement, and yet it's the thing we avoid. It's the ultimate no-no. So if you want your team to be obsessed with learning, which I believe is the only way to be obsessed with winning, then they need to find failure to be something they can say with active pride.
So that's experimentation, and you know, it's really hard. It's against human nature for us to be tolerant of failure. But if you're going to be experimenting, you have to be holding out for that pearl that is that aha moment.
Most big companies around the world have a really tough time with experimentation, right? One of the questions we ask in our survey of when we do a quantified score of a company is, to what extent do you tolerate risk-taking and failure inside your organization? And level 1 is if you fail, you're done, and it's what we call a CLM, a career-limiting move. Level 2 is, we say we tolerate risk, but really we don't. Really, you're toast. So, but at least you say you do. Level 3 is you tolerate risk in innovation areas or sandbox areas, but not in the mission critical aspects of the company. And level 4, it's pervasive across the company and measured. So for example, Amazon, for every team in Amazon is asking, how many experiments did you run this quarter? How many succeeded? How many failed? If you don't run enough experiments and not enough are failing, you're in trouble, because they want to be constantly learning. The future of organizations is going to be a learning organization, and that's what experimentation gives you. The next one is autonomy. Okay? And autonomy has a couple of pieces to it. It's the A in ideas. And it's about decentralizing decision-making and pushing it down to the edges of the company. Why? Because the people at the edge of your company have the closest contact with the end customer. Valve is a great example of this. Valve Software is about 400 people. They have no CEO, no reporting lines, no job descriptions, no management meeting, no meetings of any kind. They literally operate like a beehive. So if there's a bug in the software platform, I grab 3 people, we go fix the bug, and we disband. Every employee thinks, self-selects as to what they want to do. And it sounds kind of like a joke, but they get more revenue per employee than Microsoft for doing this. So the more you can push decision-making out the edge, the more flexibility and more resilience you build into your organization. And as we think about Peter's linear to exponential, in this very volatile world, you want as much decentralization as possible. The endpoint of autonomy is DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where smart contracts will be the interfaces between the organization and the outside world, and the whole organization can run pretty much autonomously. The poster child of this is Bitcoin, which is just a protocol, and anybody can self-select to run a Bitcoin node or not. It's completely, there's no central organization. This is incredibly difficult for a linear or traditional organization to get their head around. Very hard to implement it to a legacy organization. Zappos tried for years to implement autonomy into their organizations. You have to start an EXO with these principles in place, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, so very, very, very critical. ING Direct in Canada is called Tangerine Bank. It's a regulated Canadian bank with no CEO, no reporting lines, no job descriptions. Like, unbelievable. So when they do an online promotion, everybody goes to the phone banks. When it's regulatory or reporting time, the chief risk officer says, hey, I need help, and everybody goes to those systems. So it makes everybody it's much more fun for everybody, very difficult again to introduce into a legacy organization. Okay. The final attribute that we want to talk about is social technologies. So social technologies is the peer-to-peer collaborative technologies that allow you to communicate and collaborate peer-to-peer. We have really good evidence today that peer-to-peer working is much more valuable to traditional top-down command and control. Your manager tells you what to do, etc. Right? Think about if you have a traditional organization, the C-suite or senior management decides to do something, it filters down through layers of middle management, gets to something to do at the endpoint. The people at the coalface are probably doing the wrong thing because they've got the wrong messages. They get reports in for what's happening, which filter up through all those layers, which takes an unbelievable amount of time, and inevitably they get the wrong information, right? I'll give you this great example is IBM in the 90s was trying to figure out how important was open source software. So they went to all the CIOs of the Fortune 500 and said, how many of you are using open source software in your technology stack? And 95% of the CIOs says, no, we don't use open source. We use Oracle, we use Microsoft centralized, we need control, etc. So IBM was like, So they went to the sysadmins that were running the technology stack themselves, that how many of you use open source? 94% said yes, they are. So IBM went, okay, who's more in control? The sysadmins who are doing the work, so they made a massive bet on open source, which worked. Right? So enabling peer-to-peer collaboration is incredibly powerful, and we have a ton of tools. Zoom, Discord is the one that's used today by almost all of the Web3 world in terms of doing this, but there's a bunch of others, Slack, Asana, WhatsApp has now got community features built in, etc. Because that's the clear value. When you can have social technologies connecting not just your team members, but your community, right? Real community happens when you have peer-to-peer value creation in the community. So incredibly important there.
What happens when the CEO is not watching, right? And literally COVID could not have come at a more opportune time to drive social technologies. And I don't think we've seen a fraction of the social technologies that are being built right now that are going to emerge, 3 to 5 years post-COVID. And this allows you to get access to incredible genius around the world. It's geographic arbitrage, right? If you can't afford that AI scientist who's in downtown San Francisco, maybe they're in Poland, maybe they're in Brazil, But at the end of the day, these social technologies enable you to bring them on, staff on demand, onto your team as if they were right there. And there was an important announcement yesterday. Hopefully all of you have seen it, a new social technology that is lighting up the internet that's going to make this that much easier.
Introducing Apple Vision Pro. Vision Pro is a new kind of computer that augments reality by seamlessly blending the real world with the digital world. It's the first Apple product you look through and not at. And you control Vision Pro using the most natural and intuitive tools, your eyes, hands, and voice.
Apple Vision Pro helps you stay connected to those around you. When someone is nearby, they will appear in your view. And Vision Pro will simultaneously reveal your eyes to them.
FaceTime now becomes spatial, taking advantage of the room around you. You can join a group call and see everyone life-size. As new people join, FaceTime simply expands.
It delivers a natural representation which dynamically matches your facial and hand movement.
I'm doing well, thank you.
With your persona, you can communicate with over 1 billion FaceTime-capable devices. When viewed by someone in another Vision Pro, your persona has volume and depth not possible in traditional video.
What are we going to see there? We're going to see the ability for you to have interactions with your team members anywhere on the planet as if they're there, and really get out of the tyranny of the small boxes on Zoom.
Let's note that the imaging in virtual reality, et cetera, is getting to the point where pretty soon the resolution of a VR headset will be higher than the human eye, okay? So in a very short order, next couple of years, virtual reality will disrupt reality. So that's like, holy crap.
4K per eye right now. I think we're still a couple doublings away from that, but at the end of the day, this is about making it fun and easy and engaging. I miss an office, I miss the interactions. You know, Zoom doesn't do it for me fully. I hope that this will.